In this video, I'm going to be breaking down 3 different types of jazz guitar setups that I tend to see pretty often. And specifically, we're focusing on hollow body instruments. Not to say that you can't play jazz on a solid body or a semi-hollow guitar, but the hollow body, I think that's where that vibe really lives, and that's what I tend to prefer. There's a lot of my own opinion in this video, so if you wanted to share your own opinion, of course, that's welcome down in the comments. Specifically, we're going to be looking at these 3 different types of guitars kind of in their own lane. They each have their own vibe, and I want to lean into that. In the past on this channel, I've done videos where I compare the same exact strings, the same exact, even like the playing style and the note choices that I make. I've used the same amp and the same amp settings, but in this video, I actually just want to lean into the kind of lane that each of these 3 setups fits in. So if you're looking to get your first jazz guitar, or maybe just something different from what you already have, I hope this video helps you. Within these 3 categories, I'm going to be naming what I consider to be the Holy Grail. Again, my opinion. I'm going to be naming a couple readily available models that are being produced at this moment that you can purchase new through a distributor like Sweetwater, Zounds, Guitar Center. I'm also going to be talking about some more affordable options and some options that are now discontinued and you can find on something like Reverb or eBay. First type of instrument I want to talk about is a Thinline style archtop. This would be characterized as a guitar that has a thinner body here. So typical dimensions would be 1.5 to 2.5 inches. These guitars are the most similar in terms of these 3. This is going to be the closest to a standard electric guitar, a semi-hollow or a solid body. And in fact, you might recognize it. The 335 has basically the same design aside from the pickups being humbuckers on that instrument and it being a semi-hollow, having a center block that goes down the middle. In these guitars, they pretty much all have, although they're considered full hollow, they do have a little sound post right in front of the bridge, just a little bit north here, and that makes contact with the back. I think it makes it a little bit more feedback resistant, and it also provides some counter pressure to help with the tension of the strings on the instrument. So these guitars, I like to string up with 11s, which is what I use on all of my electrics anyway. You can still bend it, but it has a little bit of, you got room to play into it without overpowering the string. So you can still play jazz with it. You can still bend with it. It's a nice kind of middle ground. Some of my heroes that notoriously used a 330, which is kind of what people would consider the peak of that design, or what all of these guitars are now trying to copy, the Gibson 330. Some of my heroes that used that were like Grant Green, Emily Remler, famously known for playing a 330 in which she had taken the P90s out and had the body, the top of the guitar, routed out for humbuckers. So she was playing a 330 with PAF humbuckers. It's great for loud situations. You don't have to worry about feedback so much. You can play it with distortion, compression, fuzz, effects like that, whereas these guitars at some point start becoming pretty useless. Different models of this style of guitar you can look into. If money is no object, I would buy a vintage Gibson 330, specifically the years 1959 to early 65 are the most desirable. Step down in price a little bit, you can look at a Collings i30. I think that's still out of the price range of most of us mortals, but those are fantastic instruments. If I had the money, I would buy one of those. The 330 by Gibson was kind of in and out of the catalog since it was introduced, and so it has been reissued lately. You can buy a new one. I've played some of those as well, and it has the typical kind of hit or miss Gibson quality control that you expect. I would highly recommend checking out the Heritage 530 if you're able to as well, their version of the Gibson 330, the Eastman T64V, and the D'Angelico XL59 are all models that are kind of based around this design. On a budget, I think the Epiphone Casino is a great option as well. You can practice with these instruments unamplified. They're loud enough. However, they're kind of known for developing rattling and buzzing noises. Okay, so next up we have a full hollow instrument. You can tell it's much thicker here. Mounted pickups, still, same thing. You can typically find those in either 2 pickup configurations or it's just a single neck pickup. The Thinline guitar from earlier, pretty much only these days in 2 pickup configuration. The older 330s, they were also being made with a single center pickup, but pretty much everything these days is 2 pickups now with those guitars. These guitars, either 2 pickups or 1 pickup, they're still mounted to the top, as is all the rest of the electronics. It's just thicker now. I think while the Thinline design can be used for rock and blues playing, this full hollow body instrument is definitely a jazz guitar through and through. You can get away with some effects on it, although it's considerably more feedback prone than the thinner instrument. So this is an Epiphone Joe Pass model. I've had it for a little bit. I was letting a student use it for the last couple months and I got it back, put some new strings on it. I always like flat wounds with this type of instrument, and on this one anyway, I'm using a set of 12s. Just the D'Addario Chrome set is fine, I think. As you heard, the acoustic tone is a little bit louder than the Thinline, but it's still really an electric guitar meant to be plugged in through and through, though you can practice with it acoustically. While the Thinline came with a mounted bridge, these types of guitars typically have a floating bridge. It's not actually attached to the top of the instrument, so if you take the strings off, the bridge will fall off. And as far as the sound post thing goes, these instruments are kind of 50-50. Some instruments you see with a sound post, same thing, right in front of the bridge. Some instruments do not have a sound post. Now, in my opinion, kind of the pinnacle of this design is the Gibson 175. That's what everyone copies, or maybe even the Gibson L5, which is a larger version of that style of instrument. The 175 was made for many decades, so if you can't afford a true golden era Gibson from the 50s or 60s, maybe look at a 90s or early 2000s model of the 175. You can also check out the Ibanez Pat Metheny models. Ibanez's model numbers always look like serial numbers, but anything that starts with PM for Pat Metheny would be a solid choice, and they're in all different price ranges. The PM20, the PM2, a lot of different ones to choose from over the years. If you're looking for a new instrument, a popular model is the Eastman AR503, or on slightly more of a budget, the AR372. My instrument is an Epiphone Joe Pass, which are pretty affordable. They were made for a number of different years, and I would recommend just keeping the stock pickups too, because they really do the thing that you want them to do. And last but not least, we have the full hollow archtop complete with a floating pickup. That's actually really important here. Think about this as an acoustic guitar that happens to have a magnetic pickup, either attached to the fingerboard or to the pick guard. In this case, it's the pick guard, and that's where my volume control and the tone control are located as well. The only thing touching the top of the instrument is the bridge, and so you can imagine it's pretty... It's pretty loud. I do record this acoustically. I have mic'd it on stage as well. Sometimes I'll actually blend a little bit of mic signal with the pickup here. It has a really nice sound. String-wise, I'm using the George Benson set from Thomas Stick Infeld. I think it's a 15 on the E, and 19 on the B, and then the rest of the flat wounds, yeah, those two sound crazy, but the rest of the flat wounds are actually from like a 13 set. It feels heavy, but if the guitar is set up well, it's not terrible to get used to. Bending-wise, you can't bend more than a quarter tone most of the time. I'd be scared to bend a little bit more than that. So you can kind of still get that bluesy sound, but definitely this is an instrument that benefits from those big heavy strings driving the top and getting it to vibrate. It is much more feedback prone than the other guitars for the fact of it being an acoustic instrument. I think the weight of the electronics that are attached to the top on this other instrument really affect the way that it's able to resonate, and so this is naturally a little bit more feedback resistant because of all of that. This guitar tends to feedback like crazy if I'm in a loud situation. I even have to be careful what side of me that I keep the amp on. So this is the Eastman AR810. This was a prototype 7 or 8 years ago when I got it. I think the 810 model is actually a mounted pickup model now, but it looks like the 910 picked up where this left off. Kind of the holy grail of this type of instrument would be like a D'Angelico New Yorker. Coming down considerably in price would be something like the Ibanez George Benson signature model. Those are made, you can buy them new today. And they actually, I've seen them with a single pickup and I've seen them with 2 pickups, which is something you hardly ever see for a floating pickup archtop. If budget is your top priority, I would check out the Epiphone Emperor Regent model. And although I will say that these guitars are typically much more expensive than the other types of archtops, I think just based on the construction. They do seem to do much better with a solid carved top as opposed to a laminate top. These guitars, I think, actually do better with a laminate top, just on account of how they resonate and how they work as primarily electric instruments. If you want something that's acoustically loud and resonant, a solid wood top is going to be your best bet there. I'm here in Wheeling, West Virginia, getting ready to put together a show of Prohibition-era music with the symphony. I've got my old Bacon and Day tenor banjo as well as the AR810. And the guitar's going, it's being amplified with a magnetic pickup through that big volume pedal into the Fishman, so I can kind of choose how much of that signal I want, but primarily it just makes sense for the music. It's pretty much all rhythm parts. I'm using the Bear Dynamic M88. It's a super cardioid microphone, which helps with feedback, and I just swing it in on a boom arm. And I'll also say that these guitars tend to be a lot larger than the others, where these instruments, you'll see them in 14, 15, and 16-inch lower bouts. That would be the measurement here from the 2 sides of the largest part of the body. The floating pickup archtops tend to start at around 16 inches, and I've seen them as big as 17 and 18. This is a 17-inch. This is the Eastman AR810. haven't left a comment yet, I'd love to hear from you. What type of guitar do you prefer? What do you own? What are you playing? What's the setup, the string gauges, and even the string brand that you're using? I think that'd be interesting to hear from everyone. I will mention there's a couple of videos that I've done on my channel recently you might be interested in if you liked this video and you made it this far all the way to the end. The first one is a jazz guitar feedback fighting guide video that I did. It's accompanied by a blog, so if you prefer to read the blog on my website, you can do that. Or check out the video. There's going to be links in the description to that, as well as the video that I did earlier this year with the Joe Pass model when I picked that up for a student. And then also the Epiphone Casino. I recently redid all the electronics. As I mentioned, that's kind of more of my blues jazz guitar. There are a few groups I play with. We get a little loud. I use some distortion sometimes. And so that ES 330 style guitar, the Casino that I've been using, that's the guitar that I use for that style. The pickups are a little brighter. I chose potentiometers with a higher value to let some of that brightness through. If I want the traditional jazz tone, I can always roll back. But that video really talks about the electronic upgrades that I did to that instrument. You can also check out the Everything Jazz Guitar playlist, which has all my jazz-related videos from this channel from the last 6-7 years that I've been doing this. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.